Coming up on an NCAA tournament special edition of No Pulp, Ian and I will break down the bubble, who got in, who got out, and whether the committee was right at the end of the day.
But we're also going to take a look at what we think is going to happen, and not just on the men's side of things, but also on the women's side of things. Spoiler alert, Andrew is going rogue.
I've got my brackets ready, and I'll tell you who I've got. Plus, Sam Reis joins in the juicer to talk all things hoops with Ian Nicholas and a whole lot more. Welcome to a special NCAA tournament edition of No Pulp.
Kansas State has been on fire this year.
Missouri is one of the most fraudulent teams in college basketball.
And it was proved
They're not going to fire him. He's the best player in program history.
Side to Lawrence for the win! Yes! He got it!
She is the Shohei Ohtani of college softball. This is a team that's potentially going to be a top 10 team in the country.
How you feeling?
I'm excited to win the juicer.
LSU has captured its very first national championship.
Do.
I don't know if this is going to work.
There you go. NCAA tournament time. March Madness is the best time of year. Ian Nicholas, Andrew Selover here to break it all down for you as we round into March Madness, and it's the best time to fill out these brackets, and we'll get you updated on those brackets later in the show, Ian. But let's talk about how we got there first. So that means revisiting conference tournament week. And on the men's side, boy, there was a lot of struggling for the one seeds. Connecticut got the job done in the Big East.
Usual.
Yeah, the Huskies have been pretty good this year, and they are the favorite in the men's tournament. But every other one seed in a Power 6 conference really struggled. Only two other one seeds even made it to their conference tournament final.
Yeah, I was not super concerned with Purdue's performance in the Big Ten tournament because I've already been concerned about Purdue. That was long before the tournament. I think Wisconsin's pretty decent, so I don't mind that Wisconsin took them down. But North Carolina and Houston's lack of punch, Andrew, was really concerning. Everybody's looking at Houston because they got walloped by Iowa State. 30-point loss nearly for a team that was the best team in the country, according to Ken Palm, all year long. But North Carolina has been streaky all year, and I think they proved it again against NC State.
No, but I wouldn't be concerned about that one.
Why?
Because NC State went on a run. And North Carolina has proved in the big games this year, meaning they've won both Duke games this year, that they can win those top
You mean
contests.
a Duke team that I've called Charmin soft time and time again?
Sure, but for Duke and Carolina to win those games, if you're UNC, both of them, that means, in my eyes, that that's a good basketball team. Houston got obliterated. I know it was basically a road game because of how Iowa State fans traveled, but I feel like that's got to be more concerning.
But at least it was one game, right?
Sure.
In a 35-game
But there
sample
hasn't been
size,
that
they
big
do
of a
look
theme
great.
for UNC.
I don't know. They've
Okay.
had some questionable losses in ACC play.
I think the bigger question mark, though, at least they made it to their championship game. I mean, Tennessee was bounced immediately in the SEC, and you look at
Right.
Arizona lost to an Oregon team that wouldn't have even been in the tournament had Oregon not won the conference championship.
We'll talk more about Oregon later. That is a really good team under Dana Altman that dealt with a lot of adversity throughout the course of his season. And they were, in a Pac-12 that was a little bit suspect, a bid stealer, Andrew. And in this tournament, usually maybe you get one or two bid stealers throughout the entirety of a tournament. But this year, it was just, I talked about rogue early. This was insane. Teams were really hopping in and killing the bubble.
It was mayhem. And if you were a bubble team, I mean,
The bubble burst.
Yeah, it did for a whole lot of teams. Panic, and for the committee, panic, because on an average year, you expect, okay, maybe 1-2 teams, that aren't in the tournament go win a big conference where other teams are already going to make it, a multi-bid league.
What's the one that really stands out?
Duquesne.
Yeah, I love Duquesne.
Yeah, but they
Such a good
weren't a
story.
tournament team. It is a good story, but that was a tournament, I guess, at the end of the day that was more likely to be a bid-stealing tournament because the only team projected in the field in that conference was Dayton, and the odds of Dayton winning the conference tournament weren't that high because
They
it's a
were
tough
really high
conference.
like a month ago.
Yeah,
I was
it's a tough
flying high on
conference,
the
though.
Flyers.
I mean,
Yeah.
there were other ones, in my opinion, that really were big-time losses for bubble teams. New Mexico winning the conference
In the Mountain
tournament.
West that we've been talking about all spring long.
Right, that really hurt teams because there were plenty of other teams that could have won the Mountain West that were already in the tournament. But then you get New Mexico to make it a 6-bid league.
Yeah, I think New Mexico under Richard Pitino, it's so ironic, right? Rick Pitino is still spewing stuff on Twitter right now, wondering how his St. Johnnies aren't in the tournament. And then you've got teams like Richard Pitino and NC State, Richard Pitino and New Mexico State, but you also have NC State, and you said you really think this is a Wolfpack team that's legit, because even though I think North Carolina was further proved like frauds after this one, you really think NC State's got more juice to play with?
Of all of the bid stealers, I thought NC State was the most impressive because this was a team that didn't have a lot of depth. You were asked to play 5 games in 5 days, and if you look at the slate of who they played, I mean, going in on no rest against Duke, Virginia, and Carolina, that's the gauntlet. I mean, that
The gauntlet
is the
of a
gauntlet.
bad league.
You say it's a bad league, but the ACC, year after year, even though they don't get a lot of teams in, continues to prove that they are a good basketball.
I don't know, man. When you've got one of the premier teams in the ACC in Clemson, currently an underdog as a 6th seed, I think that kind of shows you that outside of Duke and Carolina, what is this league? It's nothing.
Well, we'll get to that later when we make our picks, but the ACC don't sleep on the conference, in my opinion. I'll show you why, because I have a lot of ACC teams winning big games in the tournament. But the other thing that was interesting in this whole scheme was because of these bid stealers, there were a lot less room for all these bubble teams, and the automatic qualifiers took up more seating. And so, at the end of the day, the at-large teams were only filling into the 10 slots. And normally, when you have teams that are playing in Dayton, they're as 11 seeds or 12 seeds.
Right.
This year, they had to be 10 seeds because of the lack of room for these at-large bids. And so that meant a lot more bubbles were burst. But at the end of the day, did the committee get it right? The last teams in the tournament, we're looking at teams like Virginia and teams out of the tournament, Indiana State, Pittsburgh, and others, the Big East, a conference that feels like it was really
They were
slighted.
robbed, right? I don't understand how, if we're going to keep talking about KenPom, how did the Big East, which ranked the #1 conference in all of KenPom, Andrew, only get 3 teams? When you had 3 teams, not only St. John's, but Providence and Seton Hall. Kadari Richmond, oh my goodness, this guy would have been a tournament star. He could have been really good at Syracuse. Imagine if they had a guy like Kadari Richmond. I mean, what happened? How did none of these teams get in?
Well, like I explained, there were less spots. I'll tell you who I think they got right. And a lot of people aren't going to like me for this.
I know where you're going.
Virginia should have been in the tournament, and they were. Everybody thinks that Virginia shouldn't have been in the tournament, and the reasoning...
What did they do this year?
No, hold on. The reasoning people didn't want Virginia in the tournament is because they didn't want to watch Virginia play basketball.
No, but
now
Andrew,
that is a lame excuse
when
for
they
not
played
wanting a team in the
basketball this
tournament.
year, who did they beat? Texas A&M?
Ian, they play in one of the best conferences in the country.
My
they were the
gosh.
3 seed in the conference, and they rolled the table down the slate.
You don't have a signature win on their schedule. I
Yes,
asked
you
you
do.
for one win.
Okay, out of conference, signature win, Florida. That's a tournament team from another conference. In conference, you really won against everybody in the ACC. They were the 3 seed. That means that in my mind, you're a tournament
How are you
team.
going to say a team like Indiana State, who has a superstar on that team and plays in a really good under-the-radar mid-major conference, shouldn't be in over a team like Virginia, who I think Indiana State would beat them if given the chance?
Interesting you mentioned Indiana State. I think they should be in the tournament, but not over Virginia. I think Boise State should be out of the tournament. That's my one complaint. The other complaint, Colorado State shouldn't be in the play and Michigan State should be. The problem there is you get the whole name brand in the conversation, and because of Michigan State's name brand, likely put in the main draw.
But they
over
had a
Colorado
really
State.
tough strength of schedule.
Sure, but all that we're talking about now in the net rankings, and I think this is wrong,
So many
is
rankings.
devaluing just wins and losses who you beat and
I just
putting
want to
more
pull a Kim
value
English and
on
say
how you win.
the rankings,
Right, but they're valuing how you win and not who you win against, and that's my problem. But Indiana State should be in the tournament, and that's a problem, and that's one that I think should have been fixed.
You're telling me Michigan State doesn't have a legitimate chance to take down North Carolina? Because that's what, in this
No, I
tournament, they
just
can win
think that
games.
based off their resume, they should have been in Dayton playing in the first 4.
Hey, it wasn't perfect for sure, but when is it ever?
I guess that's right. Speaking of perfect, well, that's what we hope to have in the next block for you, is a perfect bracket.
I'm not guaranteeing
I
that.
doubt we will, but we'll get to those brackets on the other side of a break as we show you who Ian and I have in the men's field to make it all the way in the big dance. Stay with us.
Did you hear about the pony with a sore throat? He was a little horse. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why couldn't the Wait. Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Where did cats go on vacation? New York.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here.
Wait.
What?
I can't drive.
Why?
My. Oh.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Well, welcome back here into No Pulp.
You're excited.
I know, because we're about to get to our brackets. Ian Nicholas, Andrew Selover with you here inside the CitrusTV studios. March Madness is here. We've talked about who's in, who's not. That's enough debating on who should be and shouldn't be in the tournament. Now it's time to get to the tournament. And let's start in where everybody starts, of course, the East Coast and the East Quadrant, top
East
left
Coast,
corner.
West Coast.
That's right, where the #1 seed UConn Huskies are. A lot of people have the Huskies and Dan Hurley making it all the way this year. Let's take a look at your East bracket.
Sure. I'm not going to tell you how far I have UConn going just yet. At least I'm not giving you the whole thing. You know, fun one. You got all these Final Four teams from a year ago, right? FAU and San Diego State. I don't see a rematch there for UConn. I see UConn getting over here to Auburn, and I see a really good Auburn team that I think could have made a deep run, Andrew, if they weren't stuck here. But I think UConn is going to get by Auburn. I have a lot of chalk on the top of this region, but don't worry, we have some fun stuff on the bottom. Duquesne, their head coach, the former LeBron James High School head coach, he's retiring at the end of this season. And Andrew, anytime you've got the coach retiring, firing, you just saw it at Long Beach State, there's extra motivation. And I really don't love BYU as much as everybody else does. And then this is definitely the one that people are going to think he's on something at home. Drake let me down last year. I had them making a little run and they lost to Miami. But what did they end up doing? They almost won that game. They competed with a Final Four team last year. And this year, I just don't think Iowa State has enough offense, Andrew. So I think Drake gets by Iowa State. There's so many good teams in this region. One of them has to lose. I pick Iowa State. Illinois, Terrence Shannon, a great defense. That's going to be too much for Drake. And I'm going to have Illinois and UConn making it out of this.
Okay, Illinois, Connecticut, 1 seed, 3 seed. I'll agree with you on some places. Drake, I like Drake as a pick. If you look at my quadrant of the East region, I also will take Drake to make it to the Sweet 16, if you believe that. I mean, we've got some stars on this team. Tucker DeVries put on a show. This is a Drake team, wasn't even predicted.
It's like a Doug McDermott kind of score.
He is. Wasn't predicted to win the MVC over Indiana State.
So
he
sad.
put together 27 points to win that. Connecticut, everybody loves Connecticut. But there's one that I have to point out here because our brackets are pretty similar. I got Northwestern and BYU winning where you did not. I just don't know that FAU can make the run that it made last year.
I don't think they can either, but
I
they're
get it's a
healthier
good
than
team.
Northwestern.
It is, but Northwestern, I think, will win that one. I have Yale going to the Sweet 16, and to be completely
Because you
honest,
put yourself in a bind.
I did put myself in a bad spot. I'm not exactly thrilled to have Yale in the Sweet 16,
Because you
but
promised they'd win a game.
I came on this show a couple weeks ago. I said whoever wins the Ivy League is going to win a game. But I picked Yale because of that, and I didn't really want it to be Yale. I wanted Princeton or Cornell to win the Ivy, and then I would have had a lot more
You almost
confidence.
got stuck with Brown.
I did. Brown actually might have been better than Yale because they should have won that game. The problem with Yale is they're bad at defense and they're bad at rebounding. And those two don't really combine for a lot of success
They're good at
in
making
March.
pizza up there, though.
But I will say they competed with Gonzaga and Kansas. That should give them some good experience. And I got to be a man of my word, so I'm going to put Yale in the Sweet 16. Connecticut going to the Elite Eight along with Drake. So I don't match yours. I don't go UConn, Illinois. I put Drake into the Elite Eight this year.
The fact that this is in Boston, UConn, Yale, that would be awesome. I don't think it's happening, but that would, as a nutmegger myself, that would be like a dream.
As a wise man once said, this is March, this is madness, and hopefully we get some madness. Let's keep it moving, Ian, and check out another quadrant here for you as we keep on checking out this bracket.
Right. Let's go and shift over to the South region where overall here, I don't love Houston. I already said it.
Hold on. I mean, we got to get explanation off the jump there.
You're right. I like to go top to bottom.
But you got a 15
principle.
seed in your Sweet 16. I mean, it's happened a lot recently, but Western Kentucky.
I like two things. I don't like this just because of Western Kentucky. I like this because I do not, and we didn't talk about it early on, I do not like Marquette. Marquette's best player, Tyler Kolek, even if he does play, Andrew, when he was playing injured at the tail end of the season with an oblique, he was bad.
But they got a sixth defender in Shaka Smart on the floor at all times.
Oh, my gosh. And that guy, that's another thing. He hasn't made it past his second weekend in over a decade.
VCU! Come on.
Like, come on, man. Like, in Western Kentucky, I really like them because they play at the fastest pace in the country. That's unique, and that's going to mess things up. And if you don't have an 100% Marquette team, I don't believe in Boise or Colorado really enough to. That's my thing. Is I look at the risk. I'm like, would I have either Boise or Colorado going very far? My answer is no. So if I'm already going to go a little crazy at the bottom of the bracket, Andrew, I go all in. Outside of that, the only other thing that I think is shocking here is maybe James Madison Duke, but it's a trendy upset pick. I think Duke and John Shire get it done in a really tight one to make it past Houston. Houston's going to win that one. And then Kentucky with that high-flying offense. That's a fun matchup, Kentucky, Western Kentucky. I think Kentucky makes it past.
So you have Houston in Kentucky or Duke in Kentucky?
I have Houston. I think Duke gets it done against James Madison, which is a good team. 30-plus wins for the Dukes. But I think Duke is going to get here, lose to Houston, and then Kentucky beats Western Kentucky.
So you go 1 seed, 3 seed in the Elite Eight in back-to-back quadrants. I respect the boldness here. I like boldness in the bracket. I'm going to switch over to mine, and NC State's one place that we disagree. I know you think it was just a one-hit, one-week wonder for the Wolfpack.
I think they're good. It's just they use a lot of energy there.
Yeah, but you get a full week to recuperate, and it's the DJ show. DJ Horn and DJ Burns. Yep. These guys are awesome to watch. I know it wasn't a great regular season, and NC State struggled down the stretch, went 4-10 in the last 14 games of the regular season. But what isn't there to like about conference tournaments and winning those? I know that conference tournaments aren't always matched in what you see in March Madness, but I just think there's so much to like about NC State and the grit that they showed. I'm with you in James Madison. I think Wisconsin's wins in the Big Ten were a little bit fluky. Should have lost to Purdue in the semifinals. Really like Nebraska. That's a strong favorite there for me. Almost upsetting Houston. I think Houston will have to play a lot of close games, but I think they'll still advance because of the defense for Kelvin Sampson's squad. Because they don't score a lot, you're going to be in close games, but they'll still win them. I've got Houston beating Duke, and I have Marquette advancing all the way to the Elite Eight. Ian has them out in the first round. I have them out. Not yet. I've got them all the way to the Elite Eight for now. We'll see how far they go. But I like Shaka Smart. I think this is a year. He hasn't performed since VCU. I think he will perform this year. We're halfway through, and it's time to take a break from the brackets because we are halfway there. And we have a guest joining the show. That's the one and only Steven Sklar, who's our March Madness men's bracket analyst, joining us here on No Pulp. Steven, great to have you in the studio tonight.
No, great having me on. Thank you guys so much. I'm excited for this March Madness tournament, just like you guys. I think there are going to be a little less upsets, but still, we'll get into all of that.
So Ian had Western Kentucky making it all the way to the Sweet 16.
Insane.
Out of the
Absolute
last two
That time of
quadrants that we showed, the East and the South, where do you think that maybe a double-digit seed can make it to the second weekend?
I'm actually looking at that very part of the bracket down there, not with the 15 seed like Ian's going with. That's lunacy. But actually, I'm going with the play-in team. There's always one play-in team that exceeds expectations, and for me, it's going to be Colorado. I really do believe in this Buffs team after winning 8 out of its last 9 to close out the regular season and conference tournament play. I think they're getting hot. They're getting hot at the right time, too. That's important. KJ Simpson, a 20-point-per-game scorer, and that's not all they have. Obviously, if he gets shut down, that makes things very hard for the Buffs, but they've got Eddie Lampkin down there. You like DJ Burns, Andrew? I like Eddie Lampkin, 6'6", 265 pounds. He's an absolute monster. And going up against that Florida team without their center, it's going to be difficult for them to stop him.
I do respect, even though you're kind of crapping on what I'm putting up here with the Western Kentucky stuff, I do like that you went with a team, Steven, that's not getting a ton of love in Colorado. I mean, first 4 in, right? So they're competing. Right. My question for you also kind of along the sleeper lines, when you look at the top half of this bracket, what's not necessarily a Cinderella that you're looking at, but a team that people aren't really talking enough outside of Colorado, maybe a step above that.
I think people are talking about this team, and Ian, you're not going to like this pick, but I'm going with BYU here. They're playing in a region that's got UConn, it's got Auburn, it's got Illinois, it's got all of these top teams that could do a lot of damage, but BYU, second in the nation in three-pointers made per game. They're going to shoot the lights out of it. And I think Duquesne is going to put up a good fight. Ultimately, I don't believe it's going to be enough for them to stop BYU. And then against Illinois with a soft defense like that, I am going to go with BYU as my not so much Cinderella team, but sleeper team.
Wow. He likes the Mountain West, maybe?
I mean, this is 6 teams in this league. I guess one of them has to go over this.
We'll see. BYU actually should have been a 5 seed, but had to move to a 6 seed so they wouldn't have to play on Sundays. So that's an interesting one, Steven. We'll get back to you a little later on, but now we got to get back to the brackets here on the show and Ian and I's picks. Ian, we go back to you. Let's get into the Midwest quadrant here and get your picks in that quadrant. 1 seed Purdue, you like at least to go a little bit. No early upset this year for Matt Painter's.
Yeah, it's not Purdue, but it's not Purdue. It's just kind of like I got to pick them. I'm sorry, none of those 16 seeds got that juice that Fairleigh Dickinson has. TCU, okay, sure, whoever is Utah State, neither team is winning that game. I think a trendy upset right now, but just got a little bit more trendy, is Samford over Kansas. I picked this before Kevin McCullough was announced out for the tournament. I knew he was banged up. Hunter Dickinson's also banged up. Do not fall into the trap of picking McNeese State over Gonzaga, though. Wiretapping Will is a great coach, but Will, of course, the head coach of McNeese in his first year, Will Wade. But Mark Few's been there, done that a little bit. He's not going to let even a mediocre Gonzaga team lose here. Outside of that, really like Oregon, but I don't like their draw. I think they could make a run, but I like Creighton to make a run even more. One of the most complete teams in the country, a veteran group. And then St. Peter's, love that you're back here. But, Texas, UVA, I think that could be difficult if UVA advances. I really do like both Texas and Tennessee to keep moving on here. Purdue beats Gonzaga, and Creighton, as I said, Creighton is a full team, Andrew, more than the one-man band of Dalton Connect in Tennessee. So I have Creighton and Purdue getting out of the Midwest.
Interesting. So I'll respect you in one spot, and that's right
in
here.
One spot.
I've got Gonzaga over McNeese because I really do not like Will Wade and McNeese. I don't respect what he did. He ruined the game of college basketball for a little bit. Shouldn't be a head coach right now. But I got Gonzaga. McNeese is a trendy pick. Everybody feels like, oh, we've got it right here. We know what upset's coming. Usually you don't. Usually when you think you know what the upset is, it doesn't. Yeah, the best win in the non-con was Michigan. So they have a good record, but they really haven't played anybody. They got to play their conference tournament at home. Keep Gonzaga moving on. Purdue, you just never do well in March.
Well, but anything about TCU that really scares you, though? That's the thing.
Had a run last year, and I think they'll keep it going again this year.
All right.
I just think they're battle-tested, and Purdue, it's less about TCU, more about Purdue,
Okay.
And they never win. I got some upsets down here. Oregon will keep it
I like
moving.
that.
South Carolina's not a tough 6 seed to face off. I know you like Creighton, but Oregon's really hot, and they've got all their players back healthy, which they didn't have for most of the season. So let's keep Oregon moving. I don't know who's going to win this one, but play-ins usually have success. So get Oregon moving against Tennessee. I've got Gonzaga, and I have Tennessee facing off in the Sweet 16 as we keep it moving to the West Quadrant, Ian.
Yeah, I think in the West Quadrant, probably the most sleepy, I would say, in terms of overall. Looking down over here, North Carolina. Everybody is saying North Carolina's got a good chance to make some magic happen. They got the easiest bracket. I disagree. Michigan State, I could see North Carolina losing to Michigan State. Tom Izzo, March. You don't need an expert to say that. I don't think that's a great Michigan State team, though. I think they should be here. I think St. Mary's, though. I hated the St. Mary's hype last year, but now I keep getting hit with the St. Mary's hype, and I'm like, I like this team, I really do. The thing is, my bracket could get busted, similar to Kentucky. It's like Kentucky's either they're going all the way or they're getting flamed in the first round. Same thing here. I really like Grand Canyon. Coach Drew is a really good coach. They have a star player who can do a little bit of everything as a wing. So if St. Mary's gets by Grand Canyon, I have them beating North Carolina because I do not believe in the inconsistencies that I've seen from Hubert Davis's team this season. Everybody likes New Mexico. I do too. I think Baylor high floor. They're going to win that first game, Andrew. They're not going to do much more outside of that. I think Arizona, though, is going to end that Cinderella run from New Mexico in the Sweet 16. So make it St. Mary's in Arizona, who's had some issues in March over the last few years, to get out of the West region.
So it's interesting, Ian. We didn't see each other's brackets before this show.
Nope.
We actually agree more on things than you would expect. St. Mary's is a team I really like, and I have St. Mary's steamrolling all the way. Grand Canyon, no chance. Charleston will beat Alabama. Alabama is a streaky team, no defense, and if they don't shoot the ball well, they're going to lose. North Carolina, Michigan State, I agree with this. Mississippi State's hot, but Izzo. And UNC and St. Mary's will keep things going. I disagree here. Clemson is a tough team to face come March, and this goes back. This goes back to the
Jim Boeheim guy.
This goes back to my like for the ACC. Colgate. Go Gate. Gonna get the win this year. Gonna get the win this year. Matt Langle's team has been in the tournament for every year in a row, it feels like, and they'll finally get the upset. I've got Clemson. I've got St. Mary's moving all the way to the Sweet 16. 5 and 6 moving on there.
Right. And we got to hear a little bit more from the third member of our crew to see if he agrees, disagrees with anything we got. So Stephen Sklar over at the wall once again. And Stephen, I think the answer to this one is going to make me sound a little bit smarter, but just want to know here, bottom half of the bracket, what's the flashy team that you see dropping out early?
It's not going to make you feel any smarter. It's going to be UNC, actually, North Carolina. I like the ACC as much as you do, Ian. It's not a knock on the conference at all. Just one thing that bugs me about this team is how lightly they took NC State in the conference championship. I can't get that out of my head. So I think they're going to steamroll the Pride of Staten Island and Wagner. Sorry, Seahawks. But then after that, I actually think they're going to get Mississippi State, which is a tough team for them to face. The rebounding, the three-point defense doesn't make sense for them.
So, Stephen, you have Mississippi State knocking out UNC in the second round. Ian and I both have them losing to St. Mary's. I'll go back to you with this one, an interesting one, and something that gets talked about after the tournament a lot. What conference will have the best tournament this year?
Well, speaking of Mississippi State, I think it's going to be the conference that they hail from in the SEC. I actually have them doing a lot of damage later on in the tournament. Mississippi State is just one microcosm of the success I think they're going to have. I've got Tennessee going all the way to the Final Four. I think they're a good team. You talk about Dalton Connect and the one-man show. I don't think that's the case. I think they've got a lot more than that. And also, I like Bama. I like them over Charleston. I like them going to the Elite Eight. I think it's a strong conference this year, and they're going to do a lot of damage this time of year.
We might agree there on the Tennessee part. We'll get to that a little later. Stephen, real quick, can we get a national championship pick from you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go with Houston over here. Everything's bigger in Texas, so we're going Lee Corso style, throwing on the the rodeo hat.
That's awesome.
All right, I respect
Bad
it.
pick.
That's a guy that goes all in on his picks right there. Steven Sklar, we thank you for the time. And we remind you of our Elite Eights as it stands on the men's side. Ian, you've got a lot of teams that you like here and a lot of 1 seeds still left.
Right. So, I mean, not a ton, right? I try to diversify the holdings here. UConn, Illinois, really like that. Houston, Kentucky, Purdue, Creighton, St. Mary's, Arizona. So, we'll see how far the Gales go.
A lot to like here. Well, a real quick reminder of my Elite Eight as well here on the men's side. Not quite as many 1 seeds, a lot of 5 seeds down here. Drake, the surprise one. And we'll get you our Final Four, but later on in the show when we come back here on No Pulp. We talk the women's bracket. We talk to Andrew Della, Piana, and we preview everything you need to know on the women's side and make our picks as well. Stick with us on a special edition of No Pulp.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzz and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Leaving hot coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire.
Hey guys, it's Smokey!
It looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown, and feel technique. After the first drown, a good start. Next, another drink. And finally, a close feel.
Is it cool? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Smokey, catch! Oh, my bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Welcome back to No Pulp, from the men's bracket to the women's bracket. Ian Nicholas alongside Andrew Selover. We told you who we have in the Elite Eight on the men's side. Now we're going to start to get you there on the women's side. And Andrew, we're not dealing with the East and the West. We're dealing with the Capital District. And we start with District 1, I guess, on the Albany side of things.
Yeah, we picked Albany and Portland,
the two meccas of college basketball.
Exactly.
And
we
Andrew,
go
get
to
us started
Region
off.
1. It's hard to beat South Carolina, I'm going to be completely honest.
Nobody has done it this year.
This is everybody's favorite team, but they have shown weakness. I still have them advancing along.
That's nuts.
12-13. People don't like the upsets in women's basketball. Florida
No.
Gulf Coast, a shoo-in every single year for a good upset. That is the best mid-major in the country, Florida Gulf Coast. But Fairfield has given them a run for their money. A one-loss team out of the MAAC. How can you not love a team making it with 1 loss and 0 losses like South Carolina? Lots of talent here. I go chalk on the bottom, except to have Nebraska facing Notre Dame in the Sweet 16. The Fighting Irish are red hot. I mean, blistering hot, like enough to burn down a
Kind
gym.
of a fraudulent run in that ACC tournament,
No, but
though.
they won the ACC tournament. And South Carolina, I do go 1 and 2. I don't pick Florida Gulf Coast. So South Carolina, Notre Dame in the Elite Eight.
All that commotion really to go nowhere. By the way, I don't know if we've ever seen a 12-13 matchup ever, like men's or women's. I don't even know when the last time we saw something like that was.
These are your 2 best mid-majors, possibly.
Okay, that Fairfield team. Let's look at what I've got, because look, I'm from Fairfield County, Connecticut. I'd love to see the Stags make a run here. What?
Pick 'em.
What are you talking about? What's your issue here?
You said you were from Fairfield. You weren't going to pick them?
I'm not going to pick. Indiana is a very good team out of the Big Ten. I'm sorry. If there was some weakness there, I mean, that's not a great Indiana team, but
you got to give me an explanation here as well.
That's an Ole Miss team that made a deep run last year in March. And I think kind of similar to NC State on the men's side, I know Notre Dame is a better team from the best conference in the country, but they've peaked. Hannah Hidalgo, this young group, they have peaked emotionally. So I got South Carolina getting it done over Indiana,
No shock
and
to
I
that.
have Ole Miss getting it done
Wow.
against Oregon State. If I already haven't beaten Notre Dame, they can knock off the Beavers too.
SEC?
Andrew, we're going to stay in Albany. Give me the Albany 2 side of things, the right side of the bracket. What do you got?
Yeah, sure. Let's go to Regional 2 up there in Albany. And I've got less shock here. You're not going to believe it. Caitlin Clark,
That's
a
egregious.
second-round exit to the Princeton Tigers,
That's egregious.
baby. The Ivy League. This is just a 4-loss team.
You're an
out of
honor
an
student.
Ivy League. Princeton is really legit. And this is a team that has major wins on the year. I've got Drake as an upset as well.
Who are they beating?
This is a Princeton team that has major wins this year, and don't be
What are you-
surprised if Caitlin Clark loses. I'm serious.
I would be
Second
floored.
round. I've got LSU. I've got UCLA. This is an interesting matchup in Louisville, LSU. Haley Van Lith transferred from Louisville to LSU.
Oh, really?
Could get a
Didn't
rematch.
see that.
Could get a rematch of her team versus her old team.
Right.
I've got UCLA, and I have Princeton into the Elite Eight.
Did you see what I have Princeton. Your knees are buckling. You know how ridiculous that is. You're smirking. That evil smirk that you have.
I'm confident in it.
Okay, let's look what I got. I have an actual bracket. Andrew filled his out with crayons. I was not losing to Princeton.
Not every fairy tale has its magic ending. man.
I will say, this is a tough regional for Iowa. The committee, I think they done messed up putting a lot of tough teams in front of Caitlin Clark. She is box office. Princeton is going to get by West Virginia. I got a lot of chalk here, I'm not going to lie. I do want to hone back in on Louisville LSU because even though LSU did lose to South Carolina in the SEC tournament, I think Kim Mulkey's team, Angel Reis, they're very irritable, they're annoying, but they're great at what they do. And at the LSU team that's overhauled, but really good. So UNLV, that's a fun team. UNLV Creighton, that's a great game. But UCLA is too good for the Lady Rebels. So yeah, I got Iowa and I got LSU making it out of Albany too.
Interesting. That would be a fun matchup.
That would be a lot of fun. You know who else is a lot of fun to chat with? Not Steven Sklar, but this time our CitrusTV women's basketball beat reporter, Andrew Della Piana. He knows more than just Syracuse. And Andrew, I ask you on the top half of this bracket, on the Albany side of things, who is shaking things up as a Cinderella?
Well, I'm going to go with the team that Andrew's very high on. How about the Fairfield Stags? Ian, you're not high on the team that you're from. Come on, that's a little bit of an unhominous, I'd say so. But South Carolina went 32-0. No one is denying the fact. But the team just below them, second best team, Fairfield 31-1 this year, a 29-game win streak. You can't argue the facts about that. They had to come back from a 13-point deficit in the MAAC championship just to have that 13 seed. And to have them as that number 13 seed, I think that is disrespectful as heck. They have the third best scoring offense in the entire country, the third best field goal percentage. They can score in bunches.
Andrew, we've talked about both sides of the Albany bracket. Is there a best matchup you're looking forward to?
Well, Ian alluded to it right away. It's that Creighton UNLV game and that 7-10 matchup. Both teams are going to the big dance for the third straight time. Both these teams are in the top 25 of the AP poll. And again, when these two teams squared off a little bit earlier in the season, it was a good contest. I'm expecting good things to come between these two teams. Both of you have different winners in this contest. I expect a lot of scoring and a lot of buckets from each of these teams.
A lot of good from Andrew Della Piana. We're going to hear from him after we finish up our picks, women's bracket. Who makes it to the Elite Eight? We're going to go from Albany to Portland.
Reasonable.
And we're going to start with Portland 2 here. And Andrew, tell me what you've got here for that.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup that we get out in the Portland Regional. And we'll get to my picks here in Portland in just a second. Hold on. Wait.
It's March Madness. Bingo.
It's Portland, baby.
Boom.
It took us a little while. We flew East Coast to West Coast. But USC has a special player in Juju Watkins. Not enough people have watched her or have talked about her. I do have an upset here.
I get sleepy.
And it's not quite as much of an upset. We don't know the status of Elizabeth Kitley for Virginia Tech. She's a really talented player, and the duo of Kitley and Amore for Virginia Tech set up for success.
You have Baylor losing?
I do. I don't know who's going to win this one, but I like both teams, Vanderbilt and Columbia.
You're telling me Columbia
Don't be
is
shocked
beating an
if I
ACC
have two
team.
Ivy League teams in at least the Sweet 16.
You're ridiculous.
Connecticut is Gino Auriemma, Paige Beckers. That's a tough team to beat.
And that's
come
literally
March.
it.
I like Duke's defense. Connecticut and USC should make up for a fun Elite 8 matchup.
You know, the thing is like UConn, they have the pedigree, more pedigree than, and let's see what I got here. You know, they have more pedigree than a Tennessee on the men's side recently, but they're kind of the same team. Star coach, star player, that's all they have. Looking at what I have, yeah, Juju Watkins is legit. She's going to roll her team all the way to the Elite 8. Baylor, I think, is a solid team. I do think that they upset Virginia Tech because, yeah, if Virginia Tech is going to lose early on, it's going to be to a good team, not Vanderbilt or Columbia. I'm sorry. So Virginia Tech without Liz Kitley is not that great a team. Syracuse and UConn, I know we are a Syracuse-based show overall, but you know, the UConn Huskies team is really good. They're running into a buzzsaw. They are playing at the XL Center. And then the rest of that bracket is pretty chalk with Duke and Ohio State. Yeah. So I've got USC and UConn making it out here.
Okay, lots of chalk there. We go to Portland Regional 4. Florida State's an interesting team. You get a lot more healthy this year than last year. Not enough to beat Texas, though.
Yeah.
I've got Gonzaga actually moving on past Utah. A lot of chalk here for me as well. NC State's an interesting team because you have the combination of Sanaya Rivers and River Baldwin, guard forward combo. That's really talented. The problem I have with NC State is they'll make it to the Sweet 16, but they run into a young and talented Iowa State team.
He's only saying this because he watched them
led
live
by Bill
once.
Fennelly. They've got Audie Crooks, and they have a lot of talented freshmen.
Emily
plus
Ryan.
Emily Ryan to be the veteran voice in the locker room. Sure. And so I have Iowa State actually playing Texas in the Elite 8 in Portland Regional 4.
I think if you said this next year, if Emily Ryan got a fifth year, I think she's currently, or sixth year, I think she's currently in her fifth year. I'd agree with you, but no, I don't see that happening. Let's look at what I've got here. Again, a lot of chalk, so I do apologize, but this is kind of, I think,
no fun over here.
Yeah, it's realistic. This is the bracket you want if you want to make some money. I'm not old enough to be on Beat the Bookie, but you know, I just put it out there. I'm pretty good at this thing. I like Florida State, but again, I don't think they have enough juice to take down Texas. That's a really good 1 seed. Utah and Pilley, she is a beast down low. And Gonzaga was blown out in their conference tournament. I really don't see a world where Gonzaga makes it out of a round of 32. And then Tennessee, a team that didn't really have a super high winning percentage during the regular season, but had a really tough schedule. I have them beating NC State, who's been overachieving all season long. And then Stanford, Tara Vanderveer. I mean, come on, it's been her season, been her, maybe not her swan song, but I can't go against Coach Tara. So I have Stanford out of the Pac-12, a great conference, and I have Texas making it out of this regional.
1-2 there for Ian. We've got to get Andrew Della Piana back on the show. We need more from him. I don't know how much you know about Portland, Andrew, but do you have a team putting on that Cinderella slipper in Portland and making it a long way, maybe as a double-digit seed or an underdog?
I do, Andrew, and it's a team that you are very high on. They have to go across the country, that being the Columbia Lions at the number 12 seed, right? Abby Shue averaging over 20 points per game. Syracuse fans remember that name. She dropped 25 in the NIT last year to beat them. She has a 40% shooting percentage from three-point distance this year. That is absolutely ridiculous, and something that Columbia does very well is they rebound and they play defense, and that's things that I care about in teams making a deep run in March. I see the Lions, a Columbia team from the Ivy League, getting maybe, Andrew, to said the Sweet 16, I heard?
Yeah, I like it. Ivy League, baby. Let's go, Ivy.
I mean, Abby Shue's balling out in one of the 5 boroughs. Over 2,000 points in her career. She's a great player, but you need more than just one player in March. And in one matchup that you have, Andrew, what's the one out of this half of the bracket that has you just salivating to see how it's going to wrap up?
My mouth-watering matchup for this Portland region is Alabama and Florida State. No, this is not the college football playoff, but just to see Tania Latin for FSU back to form as she is. Didn't play in last year's tournament due to an injury, but has propelled FSU to an upset in the ACC quarterfinals over Syracuse. Really gave NC State a run for their money in those ACC semifinals. And Alabama, it's a team that is slept on in the SEC, right? When you think of the SEC, you think of South Carolina and you think of LSU. Alabama was projected to finish 9th this year in the conference. They pick up their most wins in over 3 decades. This is a team, if they get hot, they can cause some madness and maybe even take down Florida State.
Yeah, 2 teams that Syracuse knew well, and then we kind of know well because they played Syracuse this year in the JMA Dome. So that's going to be a fun one. But Andrew, let's see what you have overall. Just one quick look at where we stand headed into the Elite 8 for your women's bracket.
Yeah, I like this. I don't think a lot of people are going to understand 7 and 9 seed on the women's side. I like Princeton, and I like Iowa State. This one's a little more reasonable. I think you can understand where I'm coming from.
Because they have players
They're young,
you can
but
name.
they have talent. Princeton, just don't be surprised.
All right, and to see what I have again, later in the show for both men's and women's, we will finalize where we think this is going to go all the way. I'm excited for this. Iowa, LSU, and then outside of that, I think a lot of it has kind of played out the way you think it would play out. But, you know, we knew what was kind of coming with our own brackets. You don't know what's coming next. Sam Reis, the fighting, former Amsterdam Mohawk. He's my buddy. He's a good friend of mine, but I'm going to take him down in the juicer when we come back here on No Pulp.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
You go and step out of the vehicle for me?
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What?
I can't drive.
What?
My. Oh.
Welcome back into a special NCAA tournament edition of No Pulp. It's special, but it's not special enough to lose the juicer. That would never happen here on this show. We've got Sam Reis in the building. Yep. He's a little nervous because he's never beaten this guy in the juicer. We're playing for some No Pulp orange juice. That's a big prize. Massive. So we're gonna need some good answers from you. Ian, first question goes to you first. What's the most competitive region on the men's side?
I just want to preface it by saying I'm fighting an uphill battle with this one. But I'm going to say Midwest region. Again, I told you, Purdue, we don't know where they're at this season, but I think that Creighton is one of my favorite teams in the country. Ryan Kalkbrenner, Coach McDermott, they have really good guard play as well. So I like Purdue. The big reason why I have the Midwest is they have the two best players in the tournament, and in March, you need stars to get you to the Final Four. Zach Edey with Purdue, National Player of the Year. Dalton Knecht is going to follow Zach Edey right up at number 2. So, Andrew, that's why you want star power, you want box office, you go to the Midwest.
All right, right to you, Sam.
Well, the question wasn't box office, it was the most competitive region, Ian.
The stars make it competitive.
I don't know if that's how that works exactly, but it's the East. It's the East region, no doubt about it. You got the top seed overall in UConn, but then look who they potentially have to go up against down the road. There's also the number 2 seed, Iowa State. What did they just do? They beat Houston by nearly 30 points, beating the Cougars for the second time this season to take the Big 12 title home. And then the 3 seed, Illinois, they just won their conference tournament. Auburn, the 4 seed, they just ran through the SEC tournament. And oh yeah, by the way, 3 of last year's Final Four teams are in this region. You also got San Diego State, FAU. We could have a UConn-San Diego State National Championship rematch in the Sweet 16. This region's absolutely loaded.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Ian, but he presented a lot of good facts. I mean, 3 Final Four teams and like 5 conference champions.
2 of them are much worse than they were a year ago.
5 conference champions. Yeah. Tournament experience matters, and that's why Sam Reis gets the win.
I told you that was going to be a tough one, guys.
No,
I don't work
Already
miracles.
making excuses.
Let's
come
stop
on.
making excuses
Yeah,
and let's go to
exactly.
Sam again here on this one. Best matchup on either side, men's or women's, in the first round.
Yeah, I'm going to stick around on the men's side, and I'm looking forward to this one. Clemson against New Mexico. This is a 6-11 matchup. Honestly, you could argue that the seat should be reversed for this one almost.
I agree
mean,
with you there.
yeah, thank you. I mean, quite frankly, it's a Clemson team that is has not impressed me that much. I think they rely too much on their shooting. They turn the ball over more than their opponents do, and they're not coming in with a lot of momentum. They're 1-3 in their last 4, guys, including a 20-point loss to BC. They lost to Notre Dame recently.
Eagles.
And then how about New Mexico? They beat 3 March Madness teams in 3 days in that pretty good 6-bid league in the Mountain West. The Lobos have some explosive guards in Jalen House. I think they're going to get
You're
it
a
done.
Lobo.
Ian, what say you?
You're Lobo. You're crazy.
Be nice.
What? Yeah, that's being.
Be nice.
It's gonna be a
Yelling
great
at me.
game.
All right, give
This
us
guy's
an
It was
answer.
a 1-point favorite.
Give us an
Let me
answer.
talk. You know, Gonzaga is not going to lose to McNeese State, but man, it's going to be a battle. You know, I understand that, you know, Will Wade scheduled like Our Lady of Fatima in Norwalk Community College early on in the season, but they are rolling like never before. He is one of the best young coaches in the country. Cheating or not, I think he's going to keep it close with Gonzaga. I ultimately think that the Bulldogs do pull this one out because of that March pedigree, but a month ago, Andrew, we didn't think Gonzaga would be in the tournament. So I really think there's a good chance that this is a down-to-the-wire thriller between a really fun up-and-coming team.
Hand up, this is on me. Host forgot to mention 1 point for the first question, 2 for the second, 3 for the third. They knew that, though, and the 2 points are headed Ian Nicholas's way. I would prefer you don't say that one of the teams isn't that good and doesn't impress you if you're trying to sell it as a
Well,
good
that's why
matchup.
it'll be competitive.
No, you should probably
All the
think
teams
that
in
the
March
teams
are
going to be
good.
good.
They should be good.
So we go back to Ian for question number 3. Winner of this question wins the juicer. A men's basketball player who will make the biggest impact, the most notable impact on opening weekend.
Win or loss, the man called Boo Buie is going to give everything that he has for Northwestern. I don't have Northwestern winning, but that's not the question. The question is who is going to have the biggest impact, and you saw it there. 30 points for Boo Buie in the Big Ten tournament against a tournament team in Wisconsin. Northwestern has been killed by the injury bug. If they want a fighting chance against FAU and those Owls, he needs to drop 40. He might need to drop close to 50. And I think he will have at least 35 points, which you don't see too often in March Madness.
And it still won't be enough.
Again, the biggest impact he needs to go off.
Come on.
Well, not enough impact to get the job done, apparently. Max Asmus in March, it just goes
Old
together.
news.
It's not old news. He's back, baby. You go 3 years ago, you all knew the name. He quite literally put Oral Roberts on his back, riding them to the Sweet
I had them winning.
16.
Just want to put that out.
All right, let me talk. And now in his 5th year in college, first year with Texas, he's a veteran. He's ready for the stage. And by the way, he's a really good basketball player, averaging 17 points a game for this Longhorns team. He might be 6 feet, but the small guys can get it done, right, Ian? He's a phenomenal player who's going to get the job done.
All right, I've heard
Elite
enough about
3-point
Max
shooter.
Asmus.
Come on.
I'm sorry. Max Asmus' time was back a couple of years ago with Oral Roberts.
Go back to high school, buddy.
And also, I advise you to watch the rest of the show and play to your host. One of us picked Northwestern to win and didn't pick Texas to win. That means it's time for Ian Nicholas to drink
he
up
opened it for
with
me.
a no-pulp
so
juicer
sweet.
win.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, Sam. Get off the show.
I can't
It's time
do
to
the
get
whole thing.
to another break. Syracuse, I should say Syracuse women's basketball out of the tournament. We picked them to lose. But we'll talk about our Final Fours. We already got you to the Elite Eights. We'll get you our champions picks and final words after this, as Ian enjoys some orange juice.
Every time I hear the alarm bell go off in school, I think it's an air raid. A lot of houses in our neighborhood have been destroyed. I like to close my ears and sing songs whenever the bombs come close. I'm worried our new neighbors won't like us. But I know it's all gonna be worth it. I just want my family to be safe. But these are not my words. These are not my words. These are not my words.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. prediabetes does. 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, but with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. And you can change the outcome. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive.
Top left.
Never give up till they buckle up.
Welcome back into this special edition of No Pulp as Ian Nicholas continues to down some orange juice. Congratulations.
No pulp, it's so clean.
Yeah, we don't need to boast, but you did win the juicer.
I did.
And I know a lot of people have been waiting a long time for this. They want to hear who we have winning the national championship. We held it to the end, but let's get to yours, Ian. You showed your Elite Eight, and let's move on from your Elite Eight and get to your Final Four and national champion.
Right, we'll start on the men's side, and I understand it. A lot of people are rolling with UConn, right? And I'm just joking. You got the women's side here. South Carolina, you can't pick against South Carolina. Iowa, I'm sorry, you're going down at some point. We'll get back to you guys in a second. UConn men's hoops, you can't beat them. St. Mary's in Arizona. The championship run ends there for St. Mary's. Arizona's finally getting it done. Houston, Kentucky. I don't like Houston, but I think they got an easy draw. And I think Kentucky is going to fizzle out because their defense blows. And then Purdue, Creighton. Purdue finally shows up after they pick up a few wins. Thank goodness for Matt Painter. I have Creighton getting to the Final Four. And I don't just have that. I think it's going to be a little bit of irony for the whole NCAA tournament. Big East. 2 of the 3 teams that actually made it from the Big East, Andrew, are going to the national championship. Creighton, UConn. UConn wins.
Wow. Connecticut, no spine in that guy to pick an underdog to win the national championship. Let's look at my men's Final Four here, and I've got a couple upsets coming as we take a look at who I have headed to the Final Four. Connecticut, I agree, will make the Final Four. That's a great team. And I also think that Houston will make the Final Four. Defense and rebounding, but I've got St. Mary's for that exact reason.
Crazy.
That's the best coach team and the best rebounding team in the country. And
Danny
give me
Hurley's right
Tennessee,
there.
Dalton Connect to make it. My finals, though, I'm not picking either one seed. I've got St. Mary's and Tennessee squaring off in the national championship. And my champion this year, give me the Gales. Give me the West Coast Conference.
Crazy.
Give me St. Mary's to win the national championship.
That got leaked before. I'm not going to lie, Andrew. I knew where you were going, and that team is flying high, but they're not
Go
soaring
Gales. Go
to the
Gales.
national championship. All right, let's see what we've got on the women's side. I'll get things started here with this women's basketball, and you know, it might be a bit chalky. I'll tell you that. But South Carolina, Ole Miss. I got Ole Miss beating Notre Dame, but South Carolina's winning. Texas and Stanford. Tara Vanderveer, I love that it's her year, and the Pac-12's really good. They got to get one representative in there. I think it's Stanford. So we move on to the other side, and bang, bang, just like that. LSU, they want revenge. They want to get back there. They feel like they've been wronged all season. And then UConn, I think Paige Beckers, her star, is going to shine. My champion, I have another conference v. conference battle. South Carolina and LSU. It's going to be a classic. Maybe Camila Cardoso hits another 3 or puts another body on the deck. South Carolina wins.
We already had a fight in that matchup the first time. We don't need another one as we check out my Final Four on the women's side. I've got some upsets coming here that Ian's not going to like, but that's okay. Notre Dame's going to beat South Carolina. The Fighting Irish are going to the Final Four. South Carolina ends the year with 1 loss. I've also got the 9 seed Princeton coming into the Final Four. Connecticut will win, and Texas will win. Only 1 seed in the Final Four. I've got Texas and Connecticut playing for the national championship. No, I'm not going to pick the Tigers to win it all. So Texas and UConn, and I will pick UConn. No, I picked Texas. You thought I picked Gino Auriemma.
Oh my
so
gosh.
Texas wins the national championship on the women's side. And for my final word here today, I've got a message to America. Enjoy this March Madness while it lasts, because there were so many bubble teams that didn't get in because of the automatic qualifiers. I think that this tournament will be expanded in the near future. I think that's a problem, and I think it's bad for the sport, but it's all about money now with the NCAA. And so I think you better enjoy this tournament, because the next one will not have the same number of 68 teams in it.
Look, you heard, we don't need to play what Dan Munson said after that game for Long Beach State. Dan Munson, my guy, Long Beach State, they fired you and you fired back. I hope you get a great job, man, and I hope it's really far away from Long Beach State. You earned it. Shout out former Gonzaga run in 1999. This guy can coach.
That does it for our March Madness episode of No Pulp. I've got one message for you guys. Fill out one bracket and one bracket only. That's the way to go with March Madness. Thanks for joining us.